So today I am going to discuss about the inguinal canal. In this inguinal canal I am going to discuss about the introduction. These points I will discuss. Those are introduction, boundaries, contents, protective mechanism and applied anatomy. First of all, we see what is a inguinal canal. It is a intramuscular slit in the lower part of a anti-abdominal wall. Between the muscles it is present like a slit-like space that is called as inguinal canal, that extending from the superficial inguinal ring to the deep inguinal ring to the superficial inguinal ring. It extending from the deep inguinal ring to the superficial inguinal ring. It is of 4 centimeters in length and see what is the inguinal canal? It is a intramuscular slit-like passes in the lower part of a anterior abdominal wall for the transmission of spermatic cord in case of males and round ligament in case of females. Where it is located? Above and medial half of a inguinal ligament. Above and medial half of a inguinal ligament. What is its length? It is of 4 centimeters in length. And where to where it extends? It extending from the deep inguinal ring to the superficial inguinal ring. And its course, it is extending from, it extends like downward, forwards and medially. Next, first of all we see about the deep inguinal ring. It is a oval aperture in the transversalis fascia. See here, this is a deep inguinal ring. It is a oval extension in the transversalis fascia and 1.25 centimeters above the mid inguinal point. Next one is the superficial inguinal ring. It is a triangular shape, oblique triangular shaped ring which is near and lateral to the pubic crest and pubic symphysis. Its base is formed by pubic symphysis and its medial and lateral borders will forms the two cruras. So it is a superficial inguinal ring is a triangular aperture in the external oblique aponeurosis. Here superficial inguinal ring on the external oblique aponeurosis and deep inguinal ring on transversalis fascia. And the 1.25 centimeters above the mid inguinal point we can observe the deep inguinal ring. Superficial inguinal ring lateral to the pubic tubercle and the lateral and medial parts are called as lateral and medial margins of a superficial inguinal ring are called as crura. Next one is the boundaries. Anterior wall. It is having a anterior wall, posterior wall, roof and floor. Anterior, posterior, roof and floor. Anterior wall whole extent is fully covered by skin, superficial fascia and external oblique aponeurosis and external oblique passage. And medial lateral 1/1 is formed by the fleshy fibers of internal oblique. Posterior wall is formed by transversalis fascia in its whole extent and conjoint tendon in its medial 2/3. The reflected part of a inguinal ligament in the medial most part. Medial 2/3 by the conjoint tendon, medial most part is formed by the reflected part of a inguinal ligament. See here. Next one is a roof. Roof is formed by lower arched fibers of a internal oblique and transverse abdominis muscle. And floor is formed by upper surface of inguinal ligament in its whole extent, abdominal surface of lacunar ligament at the medial end. What are the contents? In case of male, we can see the spermatic cord and inguinal nerve, ilioinguinal nerve. And in case of females, round ligament of uterus and ilioinguinal nerve. Next is the protective mechanisms. These mechanism, the mechanism that prevents the abdominal contents to entering into the inguinal canal, thus preventing the inguinal hernias to occur. The mechanism that prevents the abdominal contents to entering into the inguinal canal, thus that prevents the inguinal hernias to occur. These are flap wall mechanism, slit wall mechanism, ball wall mechanism, and shutter wall mechanism. First one is the flap wall mechanism. Increasing the intra-abdominal pressure, approximation of the anterior and posterior walls will obliterate the inguinal canal. Next one is the slit wall mechanism. Actually, the superficial inguinal ring which is present on external oblique muscle. So the contraction of the external oblique muscle will leads to the approximation of a two cruras of a superficial inguinal ring. That is called as slit wall mechanism. Next one is the shutter wall mechanism. The internal oblique muscle will form the anterior wall, roof, and posterior wall. And when the contraction of these fibers, arched fibers, will leads to the approximation of a roof with the floor, like a shutter. This is a shutter wall mechanism. Next one is the ball wall mechanism. Inside the inguinal canal, we can observe the spermatic muscle. The contraction of this muscle will leads to the it draws the upward the spermatic cord to plug the superficial inguinal ring. Next is a applied anatomy. The site where the inguinal canal is the site of the inguinal hernia because it is the region potential weakness of the lower part of a anterior abdominal wall. So inguinal canal is the site of the inguinal hernias will occur. Why? Because it is a potential weakness in the lower part of a anterior abdominal wall. When the intra-abdominal pressure increases, the abdominal contents, especially loops of intestinals and peritoneal sac, are pushed into the inguinal canal. This leads to the clinical condition called as inguinal hernia. There are two types of inguinal hernias are there: direct and indirect hernia. Abdominal contents are pushed into the inguinal canal directly through the posterior wall of a inguinal canal. Then that is called as direct hernia. Abdominal contents are pushed into inguinal canal through deep inguinal ring. That is called as indirect hernia.